The red wine spread like blood on the white linen. He set his glass down, his heart frozen since his wife's death. His 9-year-old daughter, Sophia, tilted her head toward the sunlight. But Sophia was supposed to be blind. That is what the doctors said, what his enemies believed. Only I saw her pupils shrink. I saw the truth they both refused to face, and that truth could either save them or get us all killed. Santori's is the kind of place that smells like garlic, old money, and secrets. I know because I wipe down the dark wood tables every night, breathing it all in. From my spot behind the espresso machine, I see everything. This corner of Brooklyn belongs to one man, and he is sitting in the back booth right now, the one with the high back that faces the door. Marco Santori. To the world, he's a legitimate businessman. His name is on this restaurant, on 3 others, and on a string of bars that glitter across the city. He's a pillar of the Italian-American community. But I see the men who come to him, their shoulders tense, their eyes low. They do not kiss his hand because he makes good pasta. He is an emperor, and this restaurant is his clean, well-lit throne room, built to cover the shadows he commands. He has been a widower for 3 years. The explosion that killed his wife, Isabella, also froze his heart. I have seen him smile, but it never ever reaches his eyes. The only warmth left in him is reserved for the small person sitting across from him. His daughter, Sophia. She's 9 years old and she is blind. That is the story, the official story, the one whispered in the neighborhood and printed in the medical charts. 3 years ago, the same car bomb that took her mother gave Sophia a dangerously high fever. The trauma, the fever, the explosion. The doctors said it all combined to sever her connection to the world. A tragic, permanent darkness. Marco believes it with the conviction of a zealot. He believes the Ruggieri family, his rivals, are responsible. They did not just kill his wife. They stole his daughter's light. His obsession with protecting her is suffocating. He wraps her in the most expensive cotton wool, guards her with men who have shadows for faces, and builds his entire life around the fragile fact of her blindness. And then there is me, Elena Morales. I am the waitress with the steady hands and the quiet feet. I am Puerto Rican, a different kind of islander in this sea of Sicilians. I am just part of the scenery. On Tuesday mornings, I am paid extra to watch Sophia while Marco takes his meetings in the wine cellar. It is easy money. I bring her orange juice. I make sure she does not bump into a stray chair. I was supposed to be a nursing student. I had 2 years down. I knew my way around a pediatric ward, but my father got sick. The family debt piled up high, and my textbooks were replaced with an order pad and a black apron. Now I take care of Sophia, this little porcelain doll who lives in a world of silence and shadow. This restaurant is a stage. Every Tuesday morning, the performance begins. The tourists in the front booths think it is just a charming Brooklyn eatery. They do not see the men in the corner booth, the ones who never touch their food. They do not see the way every person who enters glances at Marco's table first, then at the door, then back at Marco. The security cameras in the corners are not just for show. They are Marco's eyes, recording every loyalty and every potential betrayal. The air is thick with things unsaid. This is the modern world, all smartphones and credit cards, but the rules here are ancient. I watch Marco with his daughter. He leans in, and his entire posture, normally as rigid as a steel bar, softens. He cuts her pancakes into small, perfect squares. His voice, which I have heard cut through a room like a razor, becomes a low murmur, gentle and warm. Then Luca, his right-hand man, will approach, whisper something, and the softness vanishes. Marco will nod, his face turning to granite. He's a man split in two, a father drowning in grief, and a boss built of iron. He wears his guilt like a tailored suit, the guilt of not being in that car, of not protecting his wife. He's determined to not fail his daughter. Today, however, was different. I brought Marco as usual, an espresso dark enough to stain the cup. I set it down on the table, along with a glass of juice for Sophia. "Thank you," "Elena," Marco said, not looking up from his phone. "You are welcome, Mr. Santori." I turned to go, and then I froze. Sophia was sitting perfectly still. The steam from the hot espresso was rising in a lazy curl. Her head, usually held at a slight, listening angle, was straight, and her eyes were following the wisp of steam. I stopped breathing. It was not a guess. It was not a random flicker. Her gaze was locked onto it, tracking its path as it dissolved into the air. My heart hammered against my ribs. I must have imagined it. The doctors, the specialists, 3 years of reports. As if to prove me wrong, a flash of movement outside the big plate glass window caught my own eye. A sports car, cherry red and obnoxious, sped down the street, its engine roaring. And Sophia's head snapped toward it, her eyes, the blank, beautiful brown eyes that were supposed to see nothing, followed the car's path until it was gone. It took 1 second, a single, impossible second. She turned her head back to her plate. Marco was still looking at his phone. He had seen nothing. But I saw her pupils, her irises, her focus. My dormant nursing training screamed at me. That was a saccadic movement. That was a visual trace. That was not the reflex of a blind child. I hurried back to the counter, my hands shaking so badly I almost dropped the tray. That night, I stayed late to close. The restaurant was empty, the chairs stacked on the tables. I was in the back, polishing the silverware, when I heard voices from the wine cellar. The door was cracked just enough. It was Marco. And someone else. I edged closer. I knew I should not. Curiosity is a dangerous thing in this place. A fragile piece. Enzo. I want it. Enzo. My blood chilled. Enzo Ruggieri, the man Marco blamed for everything. He was here. The peace holds, Enzo's gravelly voice replied. As long as the terms are met, but there is a new game. Marco, new players. They do not care about our traditions. I do not care about new players, Marco snapped. I care about my daughter. I want her left alone. That is the only term. She is safe, Enzo said. No one harms a blind girl. She is off the board. That is why this works. I pulled back, my heart pounding again, but for a different reason. No one harms a blind girl. Enzo Ruggieri believed it. Marco Santori believed it. Her blindness was her shield, and I, a waitress, might be the only person in Brooklyn who knew it was a lie. I could not sleep for a week. Every time I looked at Sophia, I saw that flicker of her eyes. I had to know. The next Tuesday, I prepared. I filled my apron pocket with small, colorful candies. Marco was in his usual booth, Luca standing guard nearby. I walked over, a bright, false smile on my face. Good morning, Sophia. I have a treat for you today. I held out my hand, palm up, in it. I had placed 2 candies, a bright, sunshine yellow one and a deep, ruby red one. Which one would you like? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. She sat still. Marco was watching me, his eyes indifferent. He probably thought I was just being kind. Sophia lifted her hand, her small fingers reaching out, hovering. She could not possibly know. She would just guess. Her fingers wavered, and then closed decisively around the red one. Coincidence. It had to be. Good choice, I murmured, my throat dry. Later, as I was clearing their plates, I accidentally let my white linen napkin slip from my grasp. I did not make a sound. I let it fall silently. It fluttered toward the floor. Sophia's head jerked down, her eyes following its descent perfectly. She caught herself immediately. She looked away, tilting her head as if she had heard the whisper of cloth, a sound that was barely there. But I knew what I saw. She could see. I felt dizzy, as if the entire restaurant, with its secrets and its dark wood, was tilting on its axis. Why would she hide it? Why would she pretend, for 3 whole years, to be blind? I became obsessed. I watched her constantly. I saw her small fingers trace the pattern on the wallpaper when she thought no one was looking. I saw her tilt her head away from the glint of a reflected light off a water glass. She was navigating her world of sight while performing a life of darkness. And then, Marco saw it. It was a bright afternoon. Usually, he kept the shades on the east window pulled down to keep the glare out of Sophia's sensitive eyes. But today, he had forgotten. A sharp, brilliant beam of sunlight cut across the table, striking Sophia directly in the face. She did not just flinch, she recoiled, her hands flying up to her face with a small gasp, her eyes squeezing shut in genuine pain from the sudden brightness. I was standing 10 feet away, holding a coffee pot. I saw Marco freeze. The phone in his hand was forgotten. His bloodless, controlled expression shattered. He stared at his daughter, who was now rubbing her eyes, turning her face into the shadow of the booth. I saw the doubt hit him. It was like watching a crack form in a sheet of ice. He saw it. He finally, truly saw it. His mouth opened. He was going to say her name. He was going to ask. And then, he shut it. I watched him battle himself for 5 long seconds. The man who ruled an empire, who had stared down Enzo Ruggieri, was terrified. He blinked. The ice refroze. The mask of the grieving father, the protector of the helpless, slammed back into place. He leaned over, his hand shaking almost imperceptibly, and pulled the heavy canvas shade down. The table was plunged back into comfortable shadow. "It is okay, Kara," he murmured, his voice thick. "The sun is too bright today." He would not see. He chose not to see. Because if Sophia could see, she was not the helpless victim. She was not off the board. She was a target. Her blindness was the only thing keeping her safe, the only thing holding Marco's fragile peace, deal together. He looked up, and his eyes met mine. There was no acknowledgement, just a cold, flat warning. "You saw nothing." I nodded and went back to pouring coffee. My shift ended at 10 o'clock that night. I bundled up, the Brooklyn air sharp in my lungs. I walked the 3 blocks to the subway station, my mind racing. What did I know? What should I do? Say nothing, let them live this lie that was keeping them safe? My phone vibrated in my coat pocket. I pulled it out, frowning. I did not recognize the number. It was a text message. I opened it. 9 words. 9 words that stopped my heart. "Keep the secret if you want to live." I looked around, my blood turning to ice. The street was empty, save for a few bundled figures hurrying home. Someone else knew. Someone else had been watching, and they knew that I knew. My hands were shaking so hard I almost dropped my keys. "Keep the secret if you want to live." It was not a request, it was a command, delivered through the anonymity of a text message. Someone was watching the Santoris, and now they were watching me. I stumbled into my tiny apartment, the one-room studio that felt miles away from the dark wood and red wine of Santori's. My old life, the one before my father's medical bills, was packed in boxes under my bed. I pulled one out, the cardboard soft with dust. My nursing textbooks? I spent all night, sun with the cheap coffee pot hissing on the counter, relearning everything I had forgotten. I read about delayed visual recovery after trauma. I read about cortical blindness versus damage to the eye itself. And then I found it. Functional vision loss, conversion disorder, a condition where the mind, reacting to a profound trauma, literally switches off the ability to see. The eyes are perfect, the brain is healthy, but the connection is severed by a psychological wound too deep to process, a high fever, a violent explosion, the death of a mother. It was all there, and, the book said, it could be reversed. The mind could, just as suddenly, switch the connection back on. Sophia was not faking. She was recovering. The next week at the restaurant was a performance. I was the smiling waitress. Marco was the stoic boss, and Sophia was the blind child. But now I saw the strings. I saw the effort in her performance. Marco, spooked by his own doubt, had tightened security. Luca, his ever-present shadow, was no longer just a driver. He was a permanent fixture at Sophia's side. He walked her to and from the armored car that took her to the special school for the blind. I watched them one morning from the front window, wiping down a table that was already clean. It was a small thing, a detail 99% of people would miss. Sophia's hand, holding her white cane, was slightly in front of her. Luca held her other arm. As they approached the heavy glass door of the restaurant, her free hand, the one not holding the cane, lifted. It did not grope. It did not search. Her small fingers went directly to the long, vertical metal bar of the handle, grasping it with perfect, practiced accuracy. Luca, his eyes constantly scanning the street for threats, saw nothing. On the way to the car, her cane tapped the pavement, tap, tap, tap. It was about to find the edge of a large puddle left over from the morning rain, but before the cane ever touched the water, Sophia's foot had already adjusted. She made a slight, graceful step to the side, avoiding the splash completely. She did not break her stride. She did not falter. She just knew. I felt a chill run down my spine. She was not just seeing. She was an expert at not appearing to see. I had to talk to her. I had to know why. My chance came that Tuesday. Marco was in the cellar, the rumble of his voice audible through the floor as he discussed a shipping manifest with one of his suppliers. Luca was by the front door, his back to me, watching a sanitation truck rumble by. I had just taken a tray of fresh cannoli from the pastry chef. I picked up one, put it on a small plate, and walked into the big, warm, copper pot kitchen. Sophia was sitting at the steel prep table, where the chefs sometimes let her play with balls of dough. I sat down across from her. She tilted her head, the picture of a listening child. "I brought you a cookie, Sophia," I said softly. "Thank you, Elena." Her voice was a whisper. I pushed the plate toward her. I leaned in, my voice so low it was just for her. "Sophia, the mural on this wall, the big painting, it is a boat, is it not, on the ocean?" She froze. Her small hands, which had been reaching for the cookie, stopped mid-air. I saw her throat work as she swallowed. Her fingers began to tremble, just slightly. "I do not know," she whispered. "I cannot see it." "It is okay if you can," I said, my heart aching for her. "It is a beautiful painting. You are allowed to see beautiful things." She did not move for a long time. I just sat there, waiting. Finally, a single tear rolled down her cheek, then another. She wiped them away with a fierce, quick motion. "Do not tell him," she pleaded, her voice cracking. "Tell him what, mija? Do not tell Papa I can see." The words hit me harder than any threat. "Why, Sophia, why would you hide this? It is a miracle." Her next words shattered my heart. "Because if he knows I am okay, he will leave me." "He would never leave you," I said, confused. "Yes, he will," she insisted, her voice gaining a desperate strength. Before Mama. He was always gone. He was always at work. He was the boss. But after I got sick, he stayed. He stopped being the boss and he was just my papa. He cuts my pancakes. He reads me stories. If I am not blind, he will go back to being the boss. He will be gone all the time again. He will leave me. I finally understood. This was not about the Ruggieris. This was not about fear of the outside world. This was a 9-year-old child, terrified of being abandoned, clinging to the one thing that kept her father chained to her side. Her blindness was not a shield from his enemies. It was a shield from his life. I left her with the cookie, my own hands shaking. I did not know what to do. A few days later, I was refilling the sugar caddies at the bar. Marco was in his booth, a black laptop open in front of him. I saw him reading an email, his face growing darker with every line. He closed the laptop with a sharp snap, the sound echoing in the quiet lunch lull. "Luca," he barked. Luca was at his side in an instant. "Get Dr. Alistair on the line, now," Marco commanded. My blood chilled. Dr. Alistair was Sophia's specialist, the seed of doubt I had seen in Marco's eyes. The one he had tried to bury was growing. The doctor must have seen something in the last checkup, a reflex, a response. The lie was getting harder to maintain. The outside world, however, was not waiting for our family drama to resolve. That night, I overheard Marco and Luca in the alley behind the restaurant, smoking. I was hidden by the stacks of linen bags. "Enzo is in a box," Luca said, his voice low. "This new player, this Petrov. He's not like the old families. He's Eastern European. A ghost. He has something on Enzo. Something big. What? Marco's voice was sharp. A video, Luca said. From that day, the day Isabella... Get to the point. The video supposedly shows who really planted the bomb, and Petrov is telling Enzo it was not him. Petrov has him by the throat, and he is squeezing. He wants a piece of the Brooklyn waterfront. A new player. A video of the explosion. This was not a simple rivalry anymore. This was a storm gathering, and we were all in the center of it. The whispers in the restaurant changed. It was not just about Marco's grief anymore. It was about power. Enzo Ruggieri is looking weak. One of the old-timers at the bar muttered to his friend. This Petrov is making moves. Marco is smart to stay out of it, the other replied. He has got the girl. He's got no stomach for a war. He's lucky she's blind, and the first one said, sipping his whiskey. She's worthless as a bargaining chip. No one gets leverage from a broken peace. It is the only thing keeping the peace. I felt sick. They were all wrong. She was not broken, and that meant the peace was built on a lie that was unraveling. The threat became real 2 nights later. I was taking the heavy bags of trash to the dumpsters in the alley. The shift was over. The street was dark. 2 men stepped out from behind the dumpster. They were not Santori's men. They were not Italian. They were tall, pale, and wore dark, expensive-looking suits. They smelled like cloves and cold winter air. Elena Morales, one of them said. It was not a question. I froze, my hand still on the garbage bag. You are the waitress, the one who watches the girl. The other one stepped closer. He did not touch me, but he invaded my space, forcing me back against the brick wall. We know you are a smart girl. You were in medical school, he said, his accent thick. You see things. We see you seeing things. He leaned in, his voice dropping to a terrifying whisper. Do not bring the light back to her. Some things are better left in the dark. It is better for everyone, for you, for the girl, for her father. He smiled, a thin, cruel expression. Mikhail Petrov likes things as they are, and just as quickly as they appeared, they were gone. They did not run. They just melted back into the shadows. Petrov, the new player, he knew. He knew about Sofia, and he knew about me. He wanted her to be blind. It served his purpose. I ran back inside, my heart hammering so hard I thought it would break through my ribs. I was shaking, not just from fear, but from a cold, hard anger. Marco was in the walk-in pantry, checking a case of wine. It was the end of the night. We were alone. Mr. Santori, I said. My voice was trembling, but I did not care. He turned, surprised to see me. Elena, what is it? I could not tell him. I could not say. Your daughter can see, and your new enemy just threatened me to keep it a secret. The lie was too big, too tangled, but I had to do something. You got an email, I said, forcing the words out, from Dr. Alistair. His eyes narrowed to slits. How do you know about that? I see things, I said. Echoing the man in the alley, I met his gaze, refusing to look away. Just like you do. I see her flinch from the sun. I see her avoid things she should not know are there. I see her. You see her too. You just do not want to. He took a step toward me, his presence filling the small, cold room. He was terrifying, but I held my ground. You have to take her back, I pleaded. Take her back to the specialist. For real this time. No more pretending. You have to know the truth. He stared at me for a long, agonizing minute. I could see the war behind his eyes, the fear, the denial, the sliver of hope. He did not reply. He just gave a single, sharp nod. Then he brushed past me and was gone. The storm hit 3 nights later, a real Brooklyn tempest, with rain lashing the windows and thunder shaking the buildings. Marco was at a late meeting, one he could not get out of. He had asked me to stay with Sofia at the penthouse, a rare exception, with Luca posted outside the apartment door. We were in the living room, me reading a book aloud, Sofia supposedly listening. A bolt of lightning struck nearby, a blinding electric white flash, followed by an immediate deafening crack of thunder. The lights in the apartment flickered. Then a lamp in the corner shorted out. It did not just go dark, it flashed violently, a psychotic, flickering strobe of on, off. Sophia screamed. It was not a child's cry of fear. It was a scream of pure, unadulterated agony. She fell off the sofa, clutching her head, her small body curling into a ball. "It hurts," she shrieked, her voice raw. "Elena, make it stop, it hurts." My nursing training took over. The sudden, intense, uncontrolled flashes of light were an assault on her recovering senses. It was too much. I scooped her up, shielding her face against my shoulder. "Luca," I screamed, running to the door. "We have to go, the hospital, now." We raced through the storm, the armored car hydroplaning through the flooded streets. I sat in the back, holding a sobbing Sophia, my hand covering her eyes, whispering to her that it was okay, that it would be dark soon. The emergency room was chaos. I used my old nursing voice, demanding a dark, quiet room. They gave us one. An hour later, Marco burst through the door. He was soaked to the skin, his black coat dripping, his hair plastered to his head. His face was a mask of raw terror. He stopped in the doorway, his chest heaving. The room was dim, lit only by the faint green glow of the heart monitor. Sophia was on the small bed, her sobs reduced to whimpers. She was calmer, her eyes were half open, and she saw him. In the almost complete darkness, she saw his silhouette filling the doorway. Her head turned, her eyes, no longer blank, no longer pretending, tracked him. She watched him as he took a slow, stunned step into the room. He stopped. He watched her watch him. There was no sunbeam to deny. There was no reflection to blame. His daughter, in a dark room, was looking right at him. The ice around his heart did not just crack, it shattered. A young resident, a Dr. Miller, came in, holding a tablet. "Mr. Santori, we ran some preliminary scans. We need to do more, of course, but everything we are seeing, the optic nerve, the pathways to the occipital lobe, they seem functional. There is definite, pronounced neurological activity in response to stimuli." Marco did not look at him. He could not take his eyes off Sophia. "What?" Marco's voice was a ragged whisper. "What are you saying?" The doctor took a breath. "We think her vision is returning. In fact, we think it may have been returning for some time." Marco looked from the young doctor to his daughter, the miracle he had prayed for, the one thing in the world he had begged God to give him, had just arrived. And it felt like a death sentence. If she could see, she was not safe. If she could see, she was not off the board. If she could see, she was a target, and every enemy he had in the world would be coming for her. Marco did not speak. He did not yell at the young doctor. He stared at his daughter who was staring back at him with clear, intelligent, seeing eyes. The revelation hung in the sterile air, heavier and more dangerous than the storm outside. He turned to the resident. "You will discharge her. You will write in your report that the tests were inconclusive, a stress reaction to the storm. You will forget what you saw. You will forget this conversation." His voice was not loud, but it held a finality that made the young doctor's blood run cold. Marco pulled a thick roll of cash from his coat and dropped it on the counter. "For your trouble, for your silence." Within an hour, we were gone. We did not go back to the penthouse. We drove for 45 minutes, deep into a part of Brooklyn I did not recognize, to a modern, cube-shaped house of black steel and dark glass, hidden behind a 20-foot concrete wall. It looked less like a home and more like a fortress. Luca opened the heavy front door, and we stepped inside. The air was still, smelling of fresh paint and new leather. "The glass is 3 inches thick, ballistic rated," Marco said, his voice echoing in the marble foyer. "The security system is military grade. No one knows this place exists but us." He turned to Luca and 2 other men I recognized as his inner circle. "From this moment, nothing has changed. To the world, to my enemies, to every man on my payroll. Sophia Santori is blind. The hospital visit was a precaution. The rumors of recovery are lies. Anyone who speaks a word of this, they answer directly to me. The men nodded, their faces grim. The lie was back, heavier and more necessary than ever. Then he looked at me. I was still holding Sophia's hand. He could not fire me. He could not threaten me. I was the only one, besides him, who knew the whole truth, from the first flicker of steam to this very moment. "Your job has changed, Elena," he said. It was not a request. "You are no longer a waitress. Your family's debts are paid. In full. As of this morning, you will now be Sophia's full-time orientation tutor." "Orientation for what?" I asked, though I already knew. "For living," he said, his eyes dark with a pain I was just beginning to understand. "You will teach her how to see again, and you will teach her how to hide it." My life at the restaurant, the smell of garlic and coffee, the simple anonymity vanished. I was now a gilded prisoner in a bulletproof fortress. My new job was to help a 9-year-old girl live a double life. The days settled into a strange, secret routine, while the world outside believed Sophia Santori was still in darkness. I was in the sunlit atrium of the new house, teaching her. We started simply, "This color is blue. Sophia, like the sky. This is green, like the grass." Her mind had forgotten how to name the things her eyes now saw. She was smart, a quick learner, but the light was overwhelming. She got headaches. She would get frustrated and cry, retreating into the familiar comfort of her old blind routine, closing her eyes, feeling for things. One afternoon, we were in her new room, which Marco had filled with books she had never been able to read. "Why did you not tell him?" "Sophia," I asked gently, "when you first started to see," she was tracing the bright yellow sun on the cover of a picture book. She stopped. "I told you," she whispered. "I was afraid he would leave." "No," I said, sitting on the floor beside her. "I think there is more." She was quiet for a long time. Then she looked up, her brown eyes so much older than her 9 years. The day Mama died. I was in the car. She was talking to me, and then I saw it." "Saw what?" "Mija." "A light," she said, her voice tiny. "Before the big noise, on the dashboard, a little red light, blinking. I saw it. I pointed. I said, 'Mama, look, And then it all went white and hot. My blood ran cold. She'd seen. She'd been able to see, even in those moments before the trauma shut her down. When I woke up in the hospital, she continued, everything was dark. And Papa was there. He never left. He held my hand. He cried. He was there. And he was never there before. I was so scared. I just wanted him to stay. So I just stayed in the dark. She had not just been afraid of him leaving. She had, on some deep, childish level, chosen the darkness to keep him. The guilt and the fear had cemented the lie, and her recovering brain had obeyed. While I was reteaching Sophia the world, Marco was trying to keep the world at bay. The truce with Enzo Ruggieri was shattered, but not in the way anyone expected. One night, Marco was in his new, sterile office. I brought him a coffee, and he was staring at his laptop, his face a mask of cold fury. "Petrov," he said. He did not look at me. He just pointed to the screen. It was a video, grainy, time-stamped from 3 years ago. It was the street outside their old building. I saw his wife, Isabella, beautiful and vibrant, walk to the black town car. I saw her get in. And then I saw 2 men. One in the uniform of a New York City police officer, stood watch. The other, a man I did not recognize, knelt by the car, did something, and walked away. 2 minutes later, the car exploded. "That is not Ruggieri's work," I whispered, horrified. "No," Marco said. "The man who planted the bomb. He used to work for me, my father's bookkeeper. But the police officer, corrupt, paid for." Marco closed the laptop. "Petrov did not send this to me as a threat. He sent it to Enzo. He sent it to everyone. He's showing the world that Ruggieri was never the threat. He is showing them that I was betrayed by my own house, by a corrupt cop. He's not just trying to take my territory. He's trying to dismantle my past. He's trying to make me look weak, like I have been chasing the wrong ghost for 3 years. The game had changed. It was not an old family feud. It was a new Cold War, orchestrated by a man who used information as a weapon. The next day, the circle tightened. I had been given permission to leave the house for groceries, with Luca as a silent shadow. As I was loading bags into the car, a man in a rumpled trench coat approached me. He was older, with tired eyes and a face full of broken capillaries. "Excuse me, miss," he said, flashing a badge so quickly I barely saw it. "Detective O'Keefe." "Mind a word?" Luca tensed, his hand moving inside his jacket. "It is okay, Luca," I said. "What can I do for you?" "Detective, you are the Santori girl's nanny. Is that right?" he asked, his tone casual, but his eyes were sharp. They scanned me. "The expensive groceries, the armored car. I am her tutor." I said, "Right, tutor." He smiled, a greasy, unpleasant expression. "I heard a funny thing. I heard the girl had an episode at the hospital, some kind of miracle people are talking. It is an inspiring story." "I do not know what you're talking about," I said, my voice steady. "I think you do," he said, leaning in. "See, I have got debts, big ones, and a man like Santori. He values his privacy. A secret like this. A girl who is not blind when the whole world thinks she is. That is a very valuable secret. You tell your boss. Tell him Detective O'Keefe wants to talk about his daughter's recovery." He handed me a card. Then he winked and walked away. I got in the car, my hands shaking. A blackmailer, a cop on the take. When I told Marco, his face did not change. He just nodded, as if he had been expecting it. "Petrov, O'Keefe." "The walls are closing in," I said. "They are not closing in," he said, his voice quiet. "They are just showing me where the weak points are." That night, he held a meeting in the dining room, his Bontron, his 6 most trusted men, including Luca. "Petrov has made his move," Marco told them. "He's using a video of Isabella's death to leverage Ruggieri and isolate me. He has a cop on his payroll, a Detective O'Keefe, who is now trying to blackmail me." He paused, looking at each man. "But that is not our biggest problem. O'Keefe knew about the hospital. He knew about the miracle. The only people who knew about that trip to the emergency room were me, Elena, Luca, and the people in this room. We have a traitor. One of you." The silence in the room was absolute. The 6 men looked at each other, their loyalty, their very lives, now in question. "I need a plan. Marco," I said to him late that night. We were in the kitchen, the house was silent, Sophia was asleep. I was making hot chocolate, my old nursing comfort for a stressful night. "We cannot just sit here and wait for them to act." "I do not wait," he said. "I act." "Then act," I said, pushing a mug toward him. "They are all watching you, watching Sophia, waiting for the truth. So let's give them one." He looked at me, intrigued. "What do you mean?" "I call it false light, true darkness. We leak a new story. We say the rumors are true. Sophia is a candidate for a new experimental treatment. We schedule a public visit to a specialist, a big one. We let the world see her walking into a vision clinic. You want me to parade my daughter in front of them?" His voice was dangerous. "I want you to smoke out the rat," I said, meeting his gaze. "Whoever the traitor is, he will have to report this. He will have to tell Petrov or O'Keefe. It is too big not to. And when he does, you catch him. We control the story. We use their expectations against them." He was silent, turning the mug in his hands. He was weighing the risk, the sheer, terrible risk, against the possibility of finally cutting out the cancer in his own organization. "It is a good plan," he said finally. "A smart plan, but it puts her in the crosshairs. She's already in the crosshairs. Marco," I said softly, "the only difference is, this time, we are aiming the gun." He nodded. A slow, reluctant agreement. The plan was set. In that moment, the sterile kitchen felt almost warm. He was looking at me, not as his employee, not as Sophia's tutor, but as me. He reached out, his fingers lightly brushing a strand of hair from my face. My wife, Isabella. She always wanted me to get out of this life, he said, his voice barely a whisper. She thought I was lost. For 3 years. I thought she was right. He met my eyes. You make me believe this world can be good. Elena, you make me believe, and I can be. His face was inches from mine. The air was electric. I could feel the heat from him, the loneliness, the lifetime of control just barely holding on. Crack. The sound was deafening, a lightning bolt splitting the room. It was not a break. It was an impact. A perfect, star-shaped fracture appeared on the thick ballistic glass of the kitchen window, right where Marco's head had been seconds before. Down, Luca's voice roared from the hallway. He was a blur of motion, flying into the room, grabbing Sophia, who had woken from the noise and was standing in the doorway. He shielded her small body with his own, rolling them both behind the solid marble island. Marco did not hesitate. He grabbed me, shoving me to the tile floor, his body covering mine as a second. Useless shot pinged off the steel frame of the window. The silence that followed was terrifying. He's gone, Luca breathed, peering from the edge of the window. One shot, a test. Marco slowly got off me, his face transformed. The brief warmth, the vulnerability was gone. In its place was a cold, pure, and murderous rage. He walked to the window and pressed his fingers against the fractured glass. Luca joined him, using a small knife to dig a piece of deformed metal from the window's edge. He dropped the hot metal slug into Marco's open palm, a steel core. Dragunov, Marco said, his voice devoid of all emotion. Petrov's rifle. He's not just watching us anymore. He's not just testing us. He closed his fist around the bullet. He is hunting. The war was no longer in the shadows. It was at our window. The sniper's bullet changed everything. The plan was no longer a strategic choice. It was a necessity. Marco's rage was cold and absolute, but his mind was clear. Petrov had overplayed his hand. He had shown his weapon, and now Marco was going to use it against him. The plan is on, Marco announced to his inner circle the next morning, his voice flat. But it is not just a test anymore. It is a trap. Luca, you leaked the appointment, May. St. Jude's Hospital, Pediatric Ophthalmology Wing, tomorrow at 10 a.m. Use the channel you suspect. Luca nodded. Arthur, the bookkeeper. He's the only one who has been asking nervous questions about the new security accounts. Arthur, the financial advisor, not a soldier, but the man who handled every dollar, every offshore account, and every donation to the orphans' fund Isabella had started. A man who was supposed to be invisible. Let him hear it, Marco said. Let him run to his master. The next morning was bright, the sky a painful, cloudless blue. The fortress was quiet. I was helping Sophia get dressed. I had picked a simple yellow dress. She looked like a splash of sunlight herself. Are you scared? Elena, she asked me, her hands fumbling with a button. I took her hands and finished the button for her. A little. Are you? She nodded. But I am tired of hiding in the house. I want to tell Papa, after the test. I am going to tell him everything, that I am not afraid of the light anymore, that I am not afraid he will leave. He knows you are not afraid, Mija, I said, smoothing her hair, and he is not going anywhere. I led her out into the main hall. Marco was waiting by the door, dressed in a dark suit. He looked at his daughter, really looked at her, standing tall in her bright dress. His expression softened for a millisecond. He knelt. Sophia, he said, his voice low. Today. You do not have to pretend for me. You just have to be brave. Can you do that? She reached out and touched his face, her small fingers tracing his jawline. I can, Papa. He took a deep, steadying breath and stood up. Let's go. The hospital was a calculated risk. It was public, but it was also a labyrinth. We used the armored car, just me and Sophia in the back, Luca driving, and Marco in a separate car right behind us with 2 more of his men. The leak had been specific we would use the main entrance, a show of normalcy. I did not know that Detective O'Keefe had been busy. The night before, he had slipped into the garage of the Fortress, a feat only possible with inside help, and placed a small, magnetic listening device under the chassis of the car I always used, the one Marco was now following. He was not just blackmailing, he was gathering intelligence for his true boss. And at the hospital, his partner was waiting, a nurse named Nadia. She worked in the pediatric wing, a quiet, efficient woman I had seen before. She was on Petrov's payroll, the perfect inside source, ready to confirm the miracle with her own eyes. We pulled up to the main entrance. As planned, a few reporters, tipped off by an anonymous hospital source, were waiting. Cameras flashed. "Mr. Santori, is it true your daughter's sight is returning?" Marco ignored them, his hand on Sophia's back, guiding us through the lobby. We walked down a long corridor, a hallway made almost entirely of glass, sunlight streaming in. I held Sophia's hand. She did not flinch. She did not drop her head. She looked straight ahead, her eyes taking in the brightness, her face calm. She was ready. She was done with the dark. Luca and Marco's men flanked us, their eyes scanning every doorway, every face. We reached the elevator bank. "This way, Mr. Santori," Nurse Nadia said, stepping forward with a clipboard and a professional smile. "Dr. Cohen is ready for you." She was the go-between. She was the one who would confirm the visual. As she led us toward the private exam room, Marco's phone vibrated. He looked at it. A text from Luca. "Garage, level B, my car, now." Marco stopped. He looked at Nadia, then at me. "Elena, take Sophia into that room. Lock the door. Do not open it for anyone but me or Luca." "What is it?" I asked, my heart beginning to hammer. "The trap is sprung," he said, his eyes like ice. "Just do it." He turned and walked back toward the elevator, his men with him. In the subterranean parking garage, Luca was standing by his own car, the one he had parked hours earlier. He was holding a small, gray block with a blinking red light, a timer. "It was not on my car," Luca said, his voice grim, as Marco approached. "It was on the other car, the one Elena and Sophia are in, tucked up under the gas tank, timed for 10:30, 15 minutes from now." Marco stared at the device. The plan. His plan was instantly, sickeningly clear. It was never an assassination, Marco whispered, his mind racing. Petrov was not going to kill her. He was going to fake it, plant the bomb, let it go off, and... Oh, God. "And what?" Luca asked. "The video," Marco said, pulling out his phone. "He has the video of Isabella's death. He shows the world I was betrayed. Then he tries to kill my daughter. But he makes it look like Ruggieri's work, a car bomb. The same signature. He would start a war between me and Enzo, a war he knows I am too weak and distracted to win. He would let us bleed each other dry." He did not hesitate. He speed-dialed a number. Enzo. There was a surprised silence on the other end. "Marco, you have a hell of a nerve calling me." "Shut up and listen. Mikhail Petrov is playing us both. He planted a bomb on my daughter's car, set to go off in 10 minutes. He's going to blame you. He wants a war." Another silence. "He thinks we are dinosaurs," Enzo said, his voice full of gravel and hate. "He is wrong. What do you need?" "Clear the field," Marco said. "He will have men here. I need a clean exit." "Done," Enzo said. "And Marco, kill the bastard." The line went dead. A new text came in. From Arthur, the financial advisor. "Petrov is moving. Warehouse on Pier 7. He's setting something up. He thinks you are occupied." The traitor. He had revealed himself, not by running, but by helping. He was feeding Marco information to make himself look loyal, while Petrov's real plan was unfolding in the garage. Arthur, the quiet man who handled the accounts, who had been siphoning money from Isabella's orphan fund for years. He was not a monster of ambition. He was a coward, terrified of being exposed. He had given O'Keefe the codes to the garage. "Luca," Marco said, "get the car. We are leaving. Now." Upstairs, I heard a commotion in the hall, a code, a fire alarm. "Elena," Marco's voice came through my phone. "Get out, now. Fire alarm. Go to the service exit, stairs to garage B. Run." I grabbed Sophia's hand. "Time to go. Mija." We ran. We burst into the concrete stairwell, our footsteps echoing. We ran down flight after flight, the alarm blaring. We reached the garage. It was chaos. Cars were trying to exit. I saw Luca 10 yards away, motioning wildly from the driver's seat of Marco's black sedan. Marco was in the passenger seat. I ran, pulling Sophia with me. "Get in," Marco yelled, holding the back door open. We piled in. Luca slammed the car in reverse, tires screaming. "Where are O'Keefe's men?" Luca yelled as he spun the wheel, aiming for the exit ramp. "They are not here," Marco said, scanning the garage. This was it, just the bomb. Screech! A beat-up blue sedan shot out from between two concrete pillars, cutting us off, blocking the ramp. Detective O'Keefe jumped out. He was not in uniform. He was holding his service weapon, and he looked desperate. His eyes wide with panic. His plan, Petrov's plan, was falling apart. "Santori!" he yelled, his voice cracking. "Stop, just give me the girl. Give me the girl, and I close the case. I make it all go away." He was unhinged. He knew he had been made. This was his last, desperate play. "He is trying to take me." "Papa?" Sophia whispered from beside me. She was not crying. She was angry. Luca honked the horn, inching the car forward. O'Keefe raised his gun. "I'm not playing. Santori, I will shoot. He is bluffing," Luca growled. "No, he's not." I said, "He knows. He knows I know." I looked at the dashboard. My hand shot out and I slammed the high beam switch. Whump! 4,000 lumens of pure, white light flooded the dim garage, hitting O'Keefe square in the face. He cried out, throwing a hand up to shield his eyes. And in the back seat, Sophia, reacting to the sudden, blinding glare, squeezed her eyes shut and turned her head away with a sharp gasp. It was an instant, a reflex. But O'Keefe saw it. Through the glare, he saw the blind girl react to the light. He knew, absolutely, that she could see. And he knew, in that moment, that his leverage was gone. She was not a valuable secret. She was a witness. His desperation turned to rage. He brought his gun up, firing wildly. Pop, pop, pop. The windshield starred but held. "Go. Luca, go," Marco roared. Luca stomped on the gas, aiming the armored sedan directly at O'Keefe. But O'Keefe was not aiming at the driver. He was aiming at the man giving the orders. "Marco," Luca yelled, and he threw himself sideways, his body covering Marco's. Thud, thud! 2 bullets punched through the side window. The one O'Keefe's angle had exposed. Luca grunted a sharp, wet sound. The car slammed into O'Keefe's sedan, shoving it aside. O'Keefe scrambled, firing one last shot. Marco grabbed the wheel. He looked at Luca, who was slumped against the door, a dark red stain spreading across his shoulder. "Luca, I am good, boss," Luca grit out, his face pale. "Go." Marco turned to O'Keefe, who was now pinned between his car and the wall. Marco was out of the car in a flash. He grabbed the detective's wrist, slamming it against the concrete wall until the gun clattered to the ground. He put his own weapon to O'Keefe's temple. "Who?" Marco roared. "Who is the traitor?" "I do not know," O'Keefe screamed, terrified. "The bookkeeper, Arthur. He gave me the codes. It was Arthur." "Go, boss," Luca yelled again. The timer. Marco looked at the timer on the ground near his car. It said 1 minute. He looked at O'Keefe, his finger tightening on the trigger. "Papa?" "No," Sophia screamed from the car. "Please just come with us." He looked at his daughter. He looked at the man who had tried to kill them. He made his choice. He pistol-whipped O'Keefe, sending him crumbling to the ground, unconscious. Marco jumped back into the car, slamming the door. "Get us out of here!" Luca, clutching his arm, stomped the accelerator. We shot up the ramp and burst onto the Brooklyn streets just as a muffled whoomph echoed from the garage beneath us. My phone buzzed. It was a live stream, an alert from a dark web address. Marco took the phone from my shaking hand. The screen lit up. It was Mikhail Petrov. He was in a dark, damp warehouse, and he was holding a little girl. A girl with dark hair, about Sophia's size. She was wearing a blindfold. "Marco Santori," Petrov's voice purred from the phone. "You are a hard man to pin down. You avoided my little surprise, but you are too late. As you see, I have your precious cargo." It was a double bluff. He knew the bomb might fail, so he had a backup. He was faking a kidnapping. My phone rang, the other phone, the burner phone Marco had given me. The screen said, "Unknown." Marco answered it. He put it on speaker. "Did you like my movie?" "Marco?" Petrov's voice. "That is not my daughter," Marco said, his voice pure ice. Petrov laughed. "It does not matter. The world will think it is. The world will see you, a broken man. Your recovering daughter kidnapped. Unless you and I have a talk." "What do you want?" "Mikhail, I want you to stay in your box. You will publicly cede the waterfront to me. You will publicly blame Ruggieri for the explosion in the garage, and you will keep your mouth shut." "And if I do not," Petrov's voice lost all its humor, "if you do not, I will tell the truth. You want to tell the world your daughter can see go ahead, but the moment you do, I will tell them the real truth. I will release the full, unedited video of your wife's death. I will tell them exactly why she was in that car. Marco, I will tell them who she was going to meet." He paused. "I will tell them she was going to meet me." The phone call ended. The car was silent, save for the hiss of the tires on the wet street and Luca's pained, shallow breathing from the front seat. Marco Santori stared at the blank phone, his face a perfect, unreadable mask of stone. Petrov's final words hung in the air, a poison worse than any bullet. "I will tell them who she was going to meet. I will tell them she was going to meet me." "What did he mean, Papa?" Sophia asked, her small voice cutting through the tension. "What about Mama?" Marco did not answer. He turned to Luca. "How is the arm?" "I have felt better, boss," Luca grit out, his face pale with sweat. "But I can hold a gun." "Good." Marco picked up his own phone. He dialed Enzo Ruggieri. "He's at Pier 7, Marco said, his voice flat. All emotion burned out of it. "He's broadcasting. He has the bookkeeper, Arthur, with him. He has the evidence." Enzo's gravelly voice came back. "He's not just playing us, Marco, he's ending the game. He means to bury us both." "Not if we bury him first," Marco said. "He's expecting me to be broken. He's expecting me to be alone. He's not expecting us. My men are 5 minutes from the pier." Enzo said, "We go in hard. We take no prisoners. This is not our father's war. Marco, this is pest control." The line went dead. The temporary, impossible alliance was forged in the cold fire of Petrov's arrogance. "Luca," Marco commanded, "take us to the east gate of the pier. Get as close as you can. You will stay with the car. You will keep Sophia safe. You will lock these doors, and if anyone who is not me or Elena tries to open them, you shoot to kill. Do you understand?" "Yes, boss," Luca said. "No," I said, my voice shaking but firm. Marco turned to me, his eyes dark. "This is not a discussion, Elena." "Yes, it is," I said, my old nursing authority, my new, hard-won place in this, rising up. "You are going in against a man who uses information. You are soldiers. I am the only one who knows what to look for. Arthur is there. That means the servers are there. The real video, the real audio, the money trail. You can kill Petrov, but you cannot kill the data. Not without me. I am going in with you." "Elena, I forbid it." "Papa, she is right," Sophia said, her small hand gripping my arm. "She sees things you do not. Let her go." Marco looked at his daughter, this 9-year-old child who had found her voice in the middle of a war. He saw the same steel he had in her mother. He saw the same fire he was just discovering in me. He gave a single, sharp nod. "Stay behind me. Do exactly as I say, Luca. Your orders stand. Protect Sophia." Pier 7 was a graveyard of shipping containers. The rain had started again, lashing down, turning the asphalt into a black mirror. Enzo was there, his silhouette flanked by a dozen of his own men. They were not dinosaurs. They were a modern, disciplined crew. "Snipers on the roof," Enzo growled to Marco, handing him a radio. "2 of them, Dragunovs, Petrov's best. My men will create a diversion at the front gate. You and your team, and your associate," he nodded at me, "go in through the north side loading bay. It is a maze in there. Godspeed." The diversion was deafening. An explosion rocked the front gate, followed by the chatter of automatic gunfire. "Now," Marco said. We moved, a small, dark shape in the chaos, slipping through a side door that one of his men breached. The warehouse was vast, a cathedral of shadows and steel shelving. Gunfire echoed from the front, a terrible, percussive music. "The offices," I whispered, pointing up at a glass-enclosed structure 2 stories up. "The control room. The servers will be there." "Go," Marco said to me. "Take Rico with you." He motioned to one of his men. "We will draw the fire. Find that evidence. Elena, burn it all." "No," I said, "not burn it. Copy it. It is the only thing that will save you." He stared at me, understanding. I was not playing for revenge. I was playing for the endgame. He nodded. "Do it." Marco and his other men fanned out, moving like shadows toward the main floor, exchanging fire with Petrov's men, who were now caught between 2 fronts. Rico and I took the stairs, 2 at a time. The office was dark. We breached the door. Empty. "The server room," I said, pointing to a locked metal door. Rico slammed his shoulder into it. It did not budge. He shot the lock. We spilled inside. It was not empty. Detective O'Keefe was there, his face bruised and swollen from Marco's pistol whip. He was holding a laptop, his hands flying across the keys. He was wiping the system. "You." He spat, his eyes wide with panic. He raised his gun. Rico shoved me down, raising his own. O'Keefe fired. Rico grunted, falling back, his gun skittering across the floor. "I told you to stay out of it, you stupid girl." O'Keefe snarled, advancing on me. "You just had to be a hero." I scrambled backward, my eyes darting around the room. Servers, monitors, a broadcasting desk. On one monitor, I saw him. Arthur, the bookkeeper. Then he was in a different room, a smaller office, frantically shredding paper, wiping his own hard drive. O'Keefe had the gun on me. "It is over. Petrov wins. You all lose." My hand hit a keyboard. On the main monitor, I saw a dozen camera feeds from the warehouse floor. I saw Marco, pinned down behind a forklift. I saw Enzo, dueling with a sniper. "You are a cop," I said, my voice shaking. "You are a police officer." "I am a dead man if I do not clean this up," he said, aiming at my head. "Petrov has copies of everything, the bribery, the murders. He owns me, and now I am erasing you." "He is lying." I said, "He is using you." "Shut up." I saw a large red button on the broadcasting panel. "Warehouse PA." I slammed my hand down on it. "He is erasing the evidence," I screamed, my voice booming out over the entire warehouse, amplified 100 times. "O'Keefe, he's wiping the servers. He is betraying Petrov." O'Keefe froze, his face a mask of confusion. "Look." I pointed to the monitor showing Arthur. "He is destroying it all. Petrov is cutting you loose. You fool. He's leaving you to take the fall." O'Keefe's panicked eyes darted to the monitor. He saw Arthur, he saw the shredder. He saw his own leverage disappearing. No. He promised. I grabbed a heavy external hard drive from the desk and threw it with all my strength at the server rack, hitting the main power switch. The room plunged into darkness. "No!" O'Keefe screamed, firing blindly into the dark. I did not wait. I scrambled out the door, locking it from the outside. I had trapped him. He was locked in the server room with the evidence of his own crimes, and I had just announced his betrayal to the entire warehouse. His boss and his enemies now knew what he was. He was finished. I ran back to the stairs, my heart pounding. I had to get to Marco. The warehouse was a different kind of chaos now. My voice over the PA had sown confusion, but that was not all. The main lights in the warehouse suddenly shut off, plunging the vast space into near total darkness, lit only by the emergency exit signs. Then they flashed on, bright, blinding white, then off again, on, off, a psychotic, flashing strobe. "Elena?" I turned. It was Sophia. She was standing at the bottom of the stairs, Luca slumped against the wall behind her, his gun in his hand, guarding the door. "Sophia, you have to go." "No," she said, pointing up at the control room I had just left. "I saw it on the monitor in the car. The light switch, I told Luca, it hurt them in the storm. It hurts their eyes." She had told Luca to drive her here. She had seen the tactical advantage. The strobe effect was devastating. Petrov's men, used to the dark, were disoriented, firing at phantoms. "Arthur," I said, remembering the monitor. "Where is Arthur?" He is running, Sophia said, her eyes now fully accustomed to the light, scanning the dark spaces between the flashes. Over there, I looked. I saw nothing. Luca raised his radio. Boss, the bookkeeper is running east side. I do not see him, Marco's voice crackled back. Sophia grabbed the radio from Luca's weak hand. Papa, he is behind the third pillar, the red one. To your right, I can see him. There was a pause. Then a single, muffled shot from Marco's position. Got him. Marco's voice came back, flat and final. The main firefight was dying. Enzo's men had taken the snipers. It was just one man left. Marco stood up from behind the forklift, across the floor, 50 yards away. Mikhail Petrov stepped out, holding a detonator. That is far enough, Marco Petrov yelled. Your girlfriend was clever, but I am always one step ahead. The servers are wiped. But I have this. The whole place is wired. We all die together. Marco walked toward him, his gun at his side. It is over, Mikhail. Your men are gone. O'Keefe is trapped. Arthur is dead. It is never over, Petrov screamed, his face a mask of rage. I took your wife. Now I take you. Why? Marco asked, his voice quiet, stopping 20 feet from him. Why, Isabella? Petrov laughed, a cold, bitter sound. You want the truth, the real truth. Your wife was a saint, and she was a fool. She came to me. To me, she offered me everything. Your territory, your roots. If I would help her get you and Sophia out. She wanted to trade your empire for your life. She wanted to save you. He sneered. I do not save people. Marco, I own them. You were my greatest asset, your rage, your grief. It made you predictable. It made you mine. I could not let her take you away, so I killed her. I killed her to keep you in the mud with the rest of us. Marco's face did not change, but his eyes died. The last light in him went out. He raised his gun. Papa? No. Sophia ran from the shadows, from my side. She ran out onto the open floor, standing between the two men. Sophia, get back, Marco roared. No, she cried, looking at her father. I can see Papa, I can see you, and I do not want this. I do not want you to be the boss anymore. I do not want the dark. Do not do it. Do not be the man Mama was trying to save you from. Marco froze, his gun level with Petrov's chest. Petrov looked at the girl. His gamble lost, he raised the detonator. End the loop, Marco. I screamed, running out to stand beside Sophia. Choose her. Choose the light. Marco looked at Petrov's hateful face. He looked at the detonator. He looked at me. And then he looked at his daughter, her small face streaked with tears, her eyes, her beautiful, seeing eyes, pleading with him. He lowered his gun. He took one step, and then another. He walked past Petrov. He walked to his daughter, and he knelt, pulling her into his arms, burying his face in her hair. Petrov stared, his hand trembling on the detonator. He had lost. The sound of sirens filled the air, not the yelp of the city cops, but the deep, federal wail. The warehouse doors burst open, flooding the space with red and blue light. Dozens of agents in dark blue FBI vests poured in. At their head was a tall, sharp woman in a pantsuit. Mikhail Petrov, she announced, her voice booming. You are under arrest. Petrov dropped the detonator. It was a fake. It was all he had left. Enzo Ruggieri stepped out of the shadows. He walked up to the female agent. Special Agent Harding, he said. I believe this is yours. He handed her a small, military-grade encrypted hard drive, the one I had copied in the server room. It contains the full, unedited audio of the bomb plot against Isabella Santori, multiple confessions of bribery from Detective O'Keefe, and the complete financials of Arthur's embezzlement, I said. Stepping forward with Sophia, Agent Harding looked at me, then at Enzo. You are giving this to me, why? Isabella Santori was a good woman, Enzo said. She sponsored my nephew's green card. Some debts are paid in blood. Some are paid in justice. This evidence, in exchange for federal consideration for my family's unrelated business dealings. I think you will find it a very fair trade. Agent Harding looked at the drive, then at Enzo, then at Marco, who was still holding his daughter. The old order was dead. A new one had just been born. "Get him out of here," she said to her agents, motioning to Petrov. The crisis was over. The truth was out. And for the first time, in the flashing blue and red lights, I saw Marco Santori smile, a real smile. It reached his eyes. The flashing red and blue lights of the federal agents washed away the blood and shadows of the warehouse. The air, which moments before had cracked with gunfire, was now filled with the clipped, professional sounds of arrests being made, of evidence being catalogued. Mikhail Petrov, his face a mask of disbelief, was led away in handcuffs. He did not say a word. He just stared at Marco, his eyes promising a new kind of war, one that would be fought from a prison cell. Detective O'Keefe was dragged out of the server room I had locked him in. He was covered in soot from his own blind gunfire, babbling about his pension, about being a decorated officer. Agent Harding did not even look at him. She just pointed, and two of her agents took him into custody. The biggest break came from Arthur, the financial advisor, the traitor. Faced with a lifetime in a federal prison, he cooperated immediately. He sang. He gave them everything, the hidden accounts, the offshore ledgers. He detailed, with pathetic, sniveling clarity, how he had been skimming from Isabella Santori's orphan fund for years. He had panicked when Marco started moving money for Sofia's new security, afraid his theft would be noticed. He had gone to O'Keefe for protection, and O'Keefe had delivered him straight to Petrov. Arthur returned every stolen dollar and gave the federal agents the complete list of every bribe O'Keefe had ever taken. The system, for once, was working. The story exploded across the city. The media, which had been sniffing around the edges of the hospital rumors, now had a feast. "Mob war averted by FBI," screamed one headline. "Brooklyn cop indicted in Santori bombing," screamed another. But the story that fascinated the public was the human one. "Miracle on Pier 7, mob boss's daughter regains sight." Reporters and camera vans camped outside the fortress. They wanted a picture. They wanted a soundbite from the miracle girl. Marco did not hide. He did not issue a threat. He did something new. He hired a public relations firm and issued a single, formal statement. It thanked the federal agents for their work. It thanked the doctors at St. Jude's. It confirmed, calmly and factually, that his daughter, Sofia, was in recovery from a long-term trauma-induced condition. He stated that she was a minor, a victim, and that her health and privacy were his only priority. He asked, politely, to be left alone. And just like that, he had used the truth as a shield, a far stronger one than any lie had ever been. The fortress was safe, but it was a cage. I needed to go back. A few days after the warehouse, I drove to Santori's. I walked in just before the lunch rush. The restaurant went silent. The regulars at the bar, the ones who had whispered about the broken piece, turned on their stools. The other waitresses, my old co-workers, just stared. Vinny, the oldest of the regulars, beckoned me over. His face was solemn. "Elena," he said, his voice a low rumble. We heard what you did, in the warehouse, with the lights." He shook his head, a look of awe on his face. "The neighborhood. They are calling you L'Angelo della Luce, the angel of light." I blushed, picking up a clean apron from the bar. "I'm not an angel. Vinny, I'm a waitress." "You're the one who told the truth," he said. "In this place. That makes you a miracle." I tied the apron around my waist. The simple, familiar knot felt grounding. It felt like home. Marco was also cleaning house, but on a much grander scale. He had made a deal with Agent Harding. It was not immunity, it was cooperation. He provided testimony, evidence, and his own intel on Petrov's entire Eastern European network. He was, in a limited way, a witness for the federal government. In return, he was allowed to restructure. I watched him dismantle the shadow empire his father had built. The loan sharking operation was dissolved. The offshore accounts were closed and the money repatriated, taxed, and moved into legitimate investments. He sold the string of bars that had only ever been used to launder money. It cost him millions. It cost him the fear and respect of the old guard, who saw him as weak, as a man who had folded. Marco did not care. He was building a foundation, not an empire. He was building something clean, something that could last, something he could one day give to his daughter. The new balance of power in Brooklyn was settled not with a gunshot, but with a conversation. Enzo Ruggieri walked into Santori's in the middle of the day. He sat in the back booth, Marco's booth. I brought them 2 espressos. My men were ready for a war, Enzo said, his gravelly voice calm. My son. He wanted blood for the garage explosion. He thought you had set us up. But you knew I had not, Marco replied. Yes, Petrov thought we were dinosaurs, fighting over bones. Enzo took a sip of his espresso. You saved my family a great deal of trouble. Marco, a lot of blood. And you provided the diversion, Marco said. You gave me the hard drive. We are even... Enzo shook his head. No, we are not even... I owe you a debt. Not for what you did, but for what you did not do. You did not kill him. You did not start another war. You chose peace. It is a strange feeling, this bloodless debt. He stood up, leaving his espresso untouched. When the Ruggieri family acknowledges the Santori territory, the war is over. It is peace. He nodded to Marco, a gesture of profound, new respect. The old world was gone. Our world, however, revolved around Sophia. Her recovery was not a single event, it was a process. We found a specialist, a woman named Dr. Evelyn Reed, who specialized in pediatric trauma and visual spatial recovery. The world, she explained, was too much for Sophia. Too bright, too fast, too loud. Her brain, after 3 years of darkness, did not know how to filter the information. She had headaches. She had nightmares. When she was frightened or overwhelmed, she would squeeze her eyes shut, retreating to the dark, familiar place she had lived in for so long. We took it one day at a time. We went to the park. The bright, open sunlight was her greatest enemy. It hurts, Elena, she would whisper, squinting, her small hand clutching mine. I know, Mija, I would tell her, sitting with her on the park bench. You cannot fight the sun. You cannot stare it down. That is not how you win. You have to learn how to blink at it. Blink. Yes, look at the light. And when it gets to be too much, just blink. See, it gives your eyes a rest, a little piece of dark. Then you open them again. And you are still here. The sun is still here. You are okay. You just have to blink and keep going. So we practiced. Blinking at the sun. Marco bought her a bicycle. It was bright yellow. She was terrified of it. She was afraid of moving, afraid of the ground rushing past her, afraid of falling. Put on the training wheels, Marco ordered, his face tense as he watched her wobble. No, I said, my hand on the back of the bike seat. She has spent 3 years with false support. She has to find her own balance. Marco, you have to let her fall. He looked like he was going to argue, but he stayed back, his hands clenched at his sides. I am right here, Sophia, I said, walking beside her as she pedaled nervously. I have got you. I will not let you go. I ran with her, my hand steady on the seat. She pedaled faster. I am going to fall. No, you are not. Keep pedaling. And then, for just 1 second, I let go. She wobbled. She cried out, but she did not fall. Her small body corrected itself. She was doing it. Elena, she screamed, a sound of pure terror and absolute joy. She rode 5 feet, 10 feet. Then she wobbled again and tumbled onto the soft grass. She was not hurt. She sat up, breathing hard, and looked at her scraped knee. Then she looked at me, and she burst into the biggest, brightest smile I had ever seen. She got back on the bike. Luca's arm healed, but the nerve damage was significant. He would never have the same speed or strength. His time as a frontline bodyguard was over. Marco did not cast him aside. He gave him a new job. He made him the head of security for the Isabella Santori Orphan Fund, the very fund Arthur had robbed. But Luca did more than just protect the building. He started a program. He began teaching the older kids, the teenagers getting ready to age out of the system, about personal security, about self-defense, about how to spot trouble. He took all the dark, violent skills of his old life and forged them into a shield for the innocent. He became the protector Isabella had always dreamed of. The fortress was sold. It was a monument to a life of fear. We moved back to the penthouse, the place that held both ghosts and memories, but we were new people. The evenings were quiet. The house was not filled with guards. It was filled with peace. The kitchen, which had been a place of sniper fire and tense confrontations, became my domain. One night, I was making arroz con gandules, my mother's recipe. The smell of sofrito, of onions and peppers and cilantro, filled the air, warm and rich. Marco came in, home from a day of legal meetings. He had traded his tailored suits for button-down shirts and slacks. He looked tired, but lighter. He stood in the doorway, just watching me cook. "I have no idea what that is," he said, "but it smells incredible." "It is my mother's," I said. "It is real food. The only thing I know how to make is reservations," he admitted, a small smile touching his lips. "Then you are lucky I am here," I teased. He was quiet for a moment. "Teach me." I stopped stirring. "What teach me?" he repeated. "How to make that?" So I did. I handed him an onion and a knife. I showed him how to hold it, how to dice it without cutting himself. His big, scarred hands, hands that had known violence and power, were clumsy and careful. We cooked together. He chopped. I stirred. Sophia set the table, her movements confident, her small body navigating the space with an easy grace. We ate dinner together. Not a boss and his employees, just a family. The smell of garlic and old wine was gone. The kitchen smelled like adobo and cilantro. It smelled like a new beginning. One night, I found Marco and Sophia on the rooftop garden, the place Isabella had loved. The city glittered below them, a sea of a million lights. "Are you going to go away again, Papa?" Sophia asked, her voice small in the vast night. "Like you used to?" "Now that I am not sick." I saw Marco look out at the city. His city. "I used to stay here because I was afraid." "Sophia," he said, his voice quiet. "I was afraid of losing you, the way I lost your mother, that fear. It was a cage. It kept me here, but it made me dark. It made me the boss." He turned and knelt, taking her small face in his hands. "I am not staying because I am afraid anymore," he said. "I am staying because I choose to be here. I am staying because this is my home, and because you are my home, you and Elena. I'm not going anywhere." A few weeks later, Centauri's was buzzing. It was a bright, perfect Saturday afternoon. We were outside, Marco, Sophia, and me. Sophia's yellow bike was leaning against the brick wall. A tourist, seeing us standing there, asked if I would take their picture. I did. "Wait," I said, handing the camera back. "Could you take one of us?" The tourist smiled. "Of course." I stood by Sophia. Marco, in a simple white shirt, stood on her other side. He put his arm around my waist, a simple, public gesture. I leaned my head on his shoulder. Sophia beamed between us, her hand on her bike, her face tilted up to the sun. The camera clicked. We were a strange, impossible family. A Mafia boss in recovery, a former waitress, a miracle girl who had learned to blink at the sun. Above our heads. The sunlight glinted off the new gold leaf letters painted on the glass. They just said one word: open. The courtroom was cold, a stark contrast to the heat of the warehouse. It was packed. Every seat was taken by reporters, by old men from the neighborhood I used to serve coffee to, and by federal agents in stiff suits. We sat in the front row, me, Marco, and Sophia. She held my hand on one side and her father's on the other. Mikhail Petrov sat at the defense table, looking bored. He wore an expensive suit, his hair perfectly combed. He thought this was still his game. Detective O'Keefe, stripped of his uniform and his dignity, sat slumped 2 tables away, his cheap lawyer looking at the floor. The trial itself was a formality, a public execution by way of due process. Agent Harding, crisp and professional, took the stand. The hard drive I had copied was entered into evidence. "And what did you find on this drive, Agent Harding?" the prosecutor asked. "We found several things," she said, her voice clear, filling the silent room. First, a series of audio files recorded by Detective O'Keefe himself. In these files, He detailed his arrangement with Mr. Petrov, and he explicitly confessed to his role in the car bombing of Isabella Santori 3 years ago. A gasp went through the courtroom. Marco's hand tightened on Sofia's. "We also found this," the prosecutor said, and the large screens in the courtroom flickered to life. It was the video from the server room, the camera I had pointed at O'Keefe. The whole courtroom watched as he, bruised and panicked, confessed his crimes to me, admitted Petrov owned him, and then, in a final, damning act of cowardice, fired his weapon blindly into the dark. O'Keefe, sitting at his table, put his head in his hands. Next came Arthur's full confession, the bank records, the trail of money stolen from the orphan fund and funneled into O'Keefe's gambling accounts. When it was time for sentencing, the judge, a woman with a face carved from granite, looked at Petrov. "You came to this city and mistook our laws for weakness," she said, her voice ringing with contempt. "You mistook a father's grief for an opportunity. You lit a match and expected us all to burn for your profit. We will not." He was sentenced to life in a federal supermax prison, no parole. Then, she turned to O'Keefe, "You betrayed your badge, your city, and the memory of a woman who was a victim. You are a disgrace." Oh, he was sentenced to 30 years and was formally, publicly stripped of his title and pension. We walked out of the courthouse, not into a scrum of cameras, but into the bright, clear light of a Tuesday afternoon. We were, for the first time, free. Marco's deal with the city was finalized a month later. He sold the warehouse on Pier 7, the place of our final confrontation, to the city for $1. With it, he donated $20 million, the money he had just liberated from his father's shadow accounts. The city, in return, rezoned it. It was not going to be luxury condos. It was not going to be another shipping terminal. It was to become the Isabella Santori Community Center. His agreement was specific. The main wing of the building would be a state-of-the-art, completely free pediatric visual therapy and trauma recovery clinic. He was not just building a legacy, he was building an apology. He was building the one thing that might have helped his daughter, and he was giving it to the world. I did not go back to waiting tables. The day after the sentencing, I re-enrolled in nursing school. Marco paid the tuition. It was not a gift, it was, he said, a salary. He had made me the first director of the new clinic. I accepted on one condition. I went to the university registrar and changed my specialization. I was going to be a pediatric nurse practitioner with a fellowship in sensory recovery for childhood trauma. I was going to learn, on paper, what I had learned in a fortress. The scholarship that paid for my books came from the Isabella Santori Memorial Fund. We did not erase her. We did not build our future on top of her memory. We built it from her memory. We honored the woman who had tried to save him, the woman who, in the end, had... The grand opening of the center was 1 year later, the warehouse. Once a place of concrete and death, was now all glass and light wood and bright, primary colors. Children's laughter echoed where gunfire had. Marco stood at the podium in a simple suit. He did not look like a boss. He looked like a father. He kept his speech short. He thanked Agent Harding. He thanked Dr. Reed. He thanked the city. "My wife, Isabella, believed in this community," he said, his voice steady. "She believed that no child should be left in the dark. This house is her dream. I am just the man lucky enough to build it." Then he said, "And now, I want to introduce the real force behind this. My daughter, Sofia Santori." Sofia, now 10 years old, walked to the podium. She was not the same girl. Her hair was in a ponytail. She wore small, round glasses. She did not squint. She did not hide. She unfolded a piece of paper and smiled at the crowd. "When I was sick," she said, her voice clear and strong, "I was afraid of the light. It hurt. It made me want to hide. I thought the darkness was safe, but the dark is not safe. It is just empty." She looked over at me, and I smiled. My eyes filled with tears. "My friend, Elena, taught me how to blink at the sun," she said. "She taught me that you do not have to be afraid of the light. The light does not hurt if we learn how to look at it together." The applause was deafening. As she walked back to us, a delivery man pushed his way through the crowd, holding a massive, extravagant bouquet of white lilies and roses. "For Mr. Santori," he said. I took the card. It was blank, just white, thick cardstock. Marco looked at the flowers, then looked out, past the crowd, toward the rest of Brooklyn. He knew. It was from Enzo. A message, written in flowers instead of blood, a white flag, a symbol that this war, and all the wars before it, were finally, truly, over. Our life found its rhythm. Our relationship, Marco's and mine, was no longer a secret, but we did not flaunt it. It was quiet. It was slow. It was built with respect for the small girl who was still learning how to share her father. It was dinners in the penthouse kitchen, Marco's chopping skills getting better, his arroz con gandules still needing my help. It was Sunday mornings at Santori's, which was now just a restaurant again. The back booth was still his, but now he shared it with me and Sophia. The regulars would wave. Vinny would send over a free cannoli for Sophia. The security cameras were still there, but they were just cameras. They were recording a new story, a boring story, a story about coffee and sunlight and family and laughter. The story of people who had chosen the truth. One late afternoon in autumn, the three of us walked along the Brooklyn Bridge. The city was turning gold, the air sharp and clean. Sophia was quiet. She was holding something in her hand. I looked closer. It was one of her old props, a small, black satin blindfold, one she used to wear for her orientation lessons back when we were all pretending. She stopped, halfway across the bridge. She looked at the blindfold. She looked at the dark, swirling water of the East River far below. She looked at Marco. He nodded, his face full of a love so deep it ached. She looked at me. I nodded. Sophia walked to the railing. She did not throw the blindfold. She did not fling it away in anger. She just opened her hand. She let the wind take it. We watched the small black scrap of silk twirl and dance in the air, falling, falling, until it was just a speck, swallowed by the river and the long shadows of the city. She was not forgetting. She was not erasing the past. She was just letting it go. She was acknowledging that she had walked through it. And out the other side, she took my hand, she took her father's hand, and we walked home. The evening light fell on the red bricks of Brooklyn, the color of old wine, the color of old blood. But today, it was just the color of the sunset. It was warm. I looked at this man and at this child, this impossible family I had found in the shadows. I had come here as a waitress. I had seen a flicker of steam, a truth no one wanted to see. I had been terrified. But Sophia was right. The darkness is not safe. It is just empty. No one saves us from the darkness unless we are brave enough to turn on the light for each other. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I would love to know where in the world you are tuning in from, so please drop a comment below and share your thoughts. Let's talk about it. And if you enjoyed this, please subscribe to the channel, Mafia Boss Stories, and like this video. It truly helps. You can also give us extra support by hitting that hype button, so this story can be heard by even more people.